where does self-worth come from? Real self-worth comes from knowing that we are an embodiment of the divine on earth. Comes from knowing that here we are as this manifestation of, embodiment of, reflection of the divine. And when we know that, it's like we go to our mandirs and we images of the divine. We see in those images the presence of God, the presence of the divine. We recognize, of course, that it's not that all of God from all over the world has just coalesced into this one image, but we understand that that is a reflection of, a reminder of. But with ourselves, it's this living, breathing, constantly changing incarnation of the presence of the divine. And so real self-worth comes from knowing that here I am as an embodiment of the divine. All sorts of different shapes and colors and sizes and stories and backgrounds, like the different flowers in a garden. But that's where real self-worth comes from. The dilemma is that that's very rare. I should say that's where ideal self-worth comes from. It's very rare though, because most of us identify the self as the physical body, as the story, as the skills and abilities, talents, careers, success. We identify as that. And so we judge our worthiness based on it. And that's where trouble happens, because that's where we move through the world not feeling worthy. I'm not rich enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not popular enough. I'm not extroverted enough. I'm not smart enough, funny enough. We're constantly judging ourselves as though we were just this physical package. And it's not our faults. Most of us get that from childhood, if not all of it. As we're raised, we're taught that we are what we do, that our worthiness is based on what we do, and it's really tragic. Unless you had parents who were really enlightened, really fully conscious all the time, and who just loved you, not in their minds and hearts, but actually in their expression of love to you, in their words, in their actions, regardless of what you did. Unless you had that, you're going to have some sense of self-worth being based on what you look like, how you achieve, what you do. It's what we get in childhood. We come home with a good grade on the exam, And we get hugged and kissed and put on mom's lap and loved up. We come home with a bad grade on the exam. We get disappointed looks. Some even get slapped or beaten or punished or whatever. But we certainly don't get loved up. Nobody says, "Oh, an F on the exam. Oh, come here. Let me give you a big hug. I'm so proud of you." And so what we learn is, number one, other people's happiness, like our mom's happiness, our dad's happiness, is up to us. We are responsible. We are responsible for mom's good mood, dad's good mood. Right? They say, just wait till your father gets home. He's going to be really angry. Or wait till your mom hears about this. She's going to be really angry. Means you're responsible. You are responsible for mom's mood, for dad's mood. Your actions are the reason that mom will be happy, dad will be happy. So that's kind of a lot of a weight to put on a kid anyway. Kids should never feel that they are responsible for mom or dad's moods. And then aside from that, we're constantly being told, directly, indirectly, that your worthiness is based on what you look like, how you perform. Why can't you be as good as your cousin Susie? Right? This one's getting straight A's. Why can't you get straight A's? What do they have that you don't have? The next door's neighbor's kid is a star on the soccer team. Why are you so uncoordinated? And we hear this different ways all the time. What's wrong with you? Why can't you be like? Or, parents will say things like, this is so-and-so, she's the smart one. And this is so-and-so, introducing siblings. This is sibling A, she's the smart one. This is sibling B, she's the pretty one. Right? Now, parents don't realize how they are messing up so much of our sense of self. They think they're being nice. This one's smart, this one's pretty, like both good things. But what both of them learn is that their identity is wrapped up in either how they look or how they're doing in school, how quickly they learn things, how they do on an exam. And chances are the one who's smart wishes she were pretty. The one who's pretty wishes she were smart. The one who gets told she's smart goes home and looks in the mirror and cries, like, why does mom not think I'm pretty? The one who's pretty now is going to check out mentally in school because, well, mom has already said, I'm not smart. And then as we grow, our whole sense of self-worth gets wrapped up in all of that. The one who was told she's smart spends her whole life feeling like a failure that she's not pretty. The one who was told she's pretty spends her whole life feeling like a failure, not smart enough. Maybe she doesn't even try. Decides not to go to college or, skips classes because she thinks, well, what's the point? Now, I'm not blaming parents here. For the most part, they're really doing the best they can. It's just they don't realize the impact that this has. And so ideal self-worth is I'm divine. Whatever my particular physical, mental package story may be, I'm divine. I deserve to occupy my place on planet Earth because I am an embodiment of the divine. The same reason that every tree deserves to keep standing. Every body of water deserves to keep flowing. Every mountain deserves to stay because they've been created. Created by God, created by the creation. You would never say to a tree or a mountain, "How dare you? Who do you think you are?" We understand they've been put here by a perfect knowing. You would never yell at a flower for being the wrong color or shape or size, or at a tree for being the wrong type of tree. Why don't you give apples? What do you mean you only give acorns? This one gives apples. Why can't you be like that? We'd never do it. It would be ridiculous. So we understand the inherent worth of everything else in nature. But ourselves, we've sadly been kind of indoctrinated, first in our families and then by culture and advertising and whatnot, to feel like we are only worthy when we are upholding standards, whether it's beauty standards or whether we're doing what other people want us to be doing. Right? You're worthy as long as the neighbors are happy. But when it starts to be ki samne wale kya sochega, then you're no longer worthy. If somehow the neighbors no longer respect us, you're not worthy. If you're not fulfilling my agenda, you're not worthy. So we spend our lives feeling unworthy. So the way to get that back, is to just kind of take a little trip down memory lane and sort of ask yourself, God, why is it that I feel like I'm not worthy because I'm not this or that? Just see whether you can remember where that may have come from, because when you then can look at the person who told you that, directly, indirectly, and you're able to see them as just another human being struggling in their own karmic package, struggling in their own drama, it takes that hold out of it. It's like if you've ever worked with autistic children, for example, or children on the spectrum of autism, a lot of them don't like to be touched. And if you touch them, not all of them, of course, but many of them, if you touch, frequently there will be a sort of violent reaction. They will react. Now you touch them out of love, out of caring, but they, maybe you'll get a bonk in the nose by accident. Now, you understand this child didn't mean to hurt you. You're not going to be angry at the child. You understand, there's a challenge in the child's development. I misunderstood it. I misread it. And the child, in his or her karmic drama that includes this particular challenge, reacted. Not because he or she meant to give me a bloody nose. Not because he or she meant to hurt me. But just because that was all they could do in the moment. And in the same way, when we're able to look back at those who have hurt us in that way, we're able to see them as challenged in their own ways, facing difficulties in their own ways, struggling in their own ways, and that they too were just doing what they could with the toolboxes they were given. So that would be the first step. And then the second step would be to recognize that who you are, regardless of any of that, is divine. And since we know that every tree is worthy of staying standing and every mountain is worthy of being there, we recognize that so are we. And we stop measuring our self-worth based on what we look like or what we do or how we uphold a cultural standard or someone else's agenda. And we start to really find that self-worth in our own self, which ultimately is where it should come from.